Okay, hello, my friends. It is St. Patrick's Day, Monday, March 17th, 2025, and this is a daily brief. So I have something pretty awesome to show you, and I'm going to show it to you along the course of what we're doing, but we gotta go through all the other things for today first. But I promise you, this is pretty awesome what you're about to see. 1,210 Russians are off the battlefield, 19 tanks, 11 armored fighting vehicles, 37 artillery systems, 101 vehicles and fuel tanks. So it's about par for the course for the last month, maybe almost par for the course for 2 months. 1,240 is the average for the day, average each day over the course of March. Okay, this is Andrew Perpetua's list. It's about 1-to-1, maybe even slightly worse than 1-to-1 for the Ukrainians. I'm not quite exactly sure. I didn't count everything, but it's about 1-to-1 losses, Russian and Ukrainian day over day. March 16 to 17, Russians attacked Ukraine with 174 Shahed strike UAVs, other drones, and simulators. The Ukraine defenders destroyed 90 of the kamikaze drones and 70 were knocked down with electronic warfare. So we're not seeing a lot of damage. But again, night after night, they keep going after these things while they're sleeping. 5 different directions these drones were launched in, and just keeps happening. Okay, this was interesting. Over the last 3 years of war, Russia's army refined its tactics, according to Erik Prince. He's the guy that's behind Blackwater, the founder of Blackwater.
To the idiot politicians,
here's what he has to say.
I think that the Russians are
about what Russia is. How Russia's capability has changed over time.
Very good at is electronic warfare. A lot of American stuff, Javelin missile, HIMARS, Copperhead missiles, which is a guided artillery shell. It works for a week or two, and the Russians figured out how to jam the navigation or the command link, and the stuff goes blind. You look at even what's happening in Ukraine. First of all, don't listen to the idiot politicians that say, yeah, we've degraded the Russian army. No, we have chewed up a lot of material. The Ukrainians have killed a lot of people unnecessarily. It's a really dumb war. The Russian army has gotten infinitely smarter. If you shot at a Russian with artillery in March or April of 2022, it would take them an hour and a half to shoot back accurately. Now, about 2 minutes, which means if you shoot at them, you better be in your vehicle and hauling ass because they're going to get you otherwise.
That's a really interesting insight, right? So with all the casualties you've seen on the battlefield, it's been pretty bad for the Russians. They have actually generated more intelligent forces, and they can just keep recruiting and that sort of thing. So this is why the Europeans are afraid of what could come next, because they could come next as a stronger force than what they were before. Okay, let's look at this. It's reported that a military clinic has caught fire in some city I can't pronounce in Russia, Vladikavkaz. Yeah. Now, because we don't know what the source is of the problem that caught fire, but it is a military clinic, so it's pretty clearly the kind of thing that would be under some kind of attack for some reason. Okay, drones hit a fuel energy facility in Russia's Astrakhan Oblast, causing fire and injuring at least one person. We're going to talk about these kinds of drones in just a little bit. In a video that we have from United 24, it's pretty awesome. Ukraine targets energy facilities in Russia to disrupt supply of critical fuel for Russian military operations, and it keeps coming. Again, I calculated this a few weeks back. It was like every less than 3 days, like every 2-point-something days, some kind of major facility keeps getting hit. Detonation of a Russian ammunition storage location in a village house in the Zaporizhia direction. Judging by the size of the explosion, there was a lot of good stuff there. So here's the picture of the still picture of the explosion, and here's what the house was beforehand, and that's the after. And yeah, that's something. Okay. The withdrawal from Kursk, let's talk about that. What was this like? It's like a horror movie, according to Ukrainian troops as they were retreated from Kursk. BBC reports chilling testimonies from Ukrainian soldiers fighting in Kursk. The retreat was under relentless drone fire, blocking supply routes. The key roads were bombed. Dozens of vehicles were destroyed. But 70,000 Russian troops were deployed there, including 12,000 North Koreans and kamikaze drones. They had to be repurposed to go over there. Ukraine inflicted 50,000 plus casualties. I've seen estimates as high as 55,000, but lost most of the territory that it gained. So was the operation a success? I hear people saying, well, we did what we planned to do and it's a success. A greater success would have been holding on to the ground. But yeah, they did do some things diverting. So it mixed at best. And they conclude that it came with a heavy cost. And this was from the BBC. Okay, Defense Minister Rustem Umerov told Fox News that if Russia wants to end the war, it must conditionally accept the U.S. ceasefire. And this idea of thousands of encircled Ukrainians, not real.
Can I ask you about the Kursk territory? There's been some question about whether or not that may be part of any negotiation between Ukraine and Russia. What's your perspective on that?
Our defense forces, we continue to conduct the defensive operations, and we are keeping a significant number of kilometers of the enemy territory under control. There is, to preserve some availability of the forces and troops, we have conducted some planned redeployment to a more favorable defense lines. Mm-hmm. But at this stage, no unit of the defense forces is encircled, and statements about the thousands of Ukrainian servicemen that are encircled are not correct.
Okay, so to be fair, a significant number of kilometers, I mean, I don't know what significant means exactly, but there's a lot less than there used to be. Okay, but that's there. And the redeployment means they have withdrawn to the safer position right on the border of Ukraine itself. And yeah, but there's no encirclement.
We had some similar situation occurred last fall. During the BRICS summit, there was some alleged, propaganda of some Ukrainian servicemen encircled, but the information was not confirmed. So this is the continuation of propaganda. But we will continue. We will continue our active defense operations with some offensive actions against the flanks of the enemy task forces to prevent its invasion to our territory.
Yeah, okay, and that makes sense. But it's really interesting that they did this before with another propaganda offensive. But when it's repeated then from the president of the United States, it actually gains a lot more traction. Okay, I haven't done this for a while, but I'm doing it again. This is just that intensity kind of around the battlefield. Kharkiv direction, 4 attacks. In the Seversk direction, 2 assaults in one place in the Bakhmut front 3 times. So that's 5 total. In the Orkiv direction in Zaporizhia region, 6 attacks. In southernmost battlefront of the Donetsk region, 6 attacks. In the Liman direction, 9 attacks. Kupiansk direction, 9 attacks. Northwest temporarily occupied Horlovika, 14 attacks. And Pokrovsk, 15 attacks. So you're seeing a good feel for what the battle feels like. It's much less intense than it was just a couple of months ago. Okay. These are Russian propagandists talking about how we need Russian-speaking regions. Let's look at this. We need all Russian-speaking regions of Ukraine, and those who don't want to speak Russian, well, goodbye. Okay, well, that's how they're talking about this, and we need to cut Ukraine off from the sea, turning it into a landlocked regional power with status even lower than that of Romania. Okay, this is how Russians are talking about things. You know, a serious question. Kherson, for example, it's not purely Russian-speaking, right? And even during the referendum, it was conducted in 2 languages. There were 2 languages on the ballots. They're really stuck on this whole language issue. Everything is fine there. They speak Russian. Those who don't want to speak it, goodbye. That's what I think. They deserve it. These are Russians talking about dividing up land in Ukraine that doesn't belong to them. And that's the way that they think about this thing. Now, meanwhile, in Russia's Yakutsk, Russia is unable to stop the flood of sewage because, well, and I'm hard pressed to say because of the money spent to produce missiles for strikes. And it's not like one is as opposed to the other, but they're really not spending the money that they need to stop the sewage from flowing into people's houses. Meanwhile, a Yatuk sculptor has made a Statue of Liberty out of what leaks from the sewage. So how about that? Okay. Now, this is what I told you that was going to be really awesome. This is United 24 video talking about what is going on in with drones, and it's pretty awesome. Let's watch this.
окремий полк. Готові роз'єбувати підерів.
Okay, I'm not translating that.
I'll see you on the other side, my friend. So today is the first time in my life that I travel to work with my eyes closed. And the reason, hello, Commander.
Добрий вечір.
The reason he will tell us.
Сьогодні
Today, we'll show you something very special.
прошу. Наш,
Our magnificent Lyuti UAVs
який наносить
that are deep striking Russian soil.
по території Росії.
So if you're wondering how they're hitting what they're hitting, it's because of things like this. Listen to this.
As the commander says, these are long-range deep strike drones produced here in Ukraine, used by the 14th Polk, Deep Strike Polk, to attack targets deep inside the Russian Federation. Today we've been granted exclusive access with the unit. They will tell us all about these drones, how they use them, and then hopefully we will see them in action. Enjoy our report.
The Lyuti Deep Strike UAV, Ukrainian production, range 1,000+ kilometers, speed 250 to 300 kilometers per hour, payload between 50 and 75 kilograms, guided by an artificial intelligence system, cost around $200,000. Why is deep striking into Russian territory so important?
We understand that we're facing a mighty opponent. Russia has lots and lots of missiles and drones. We have to strike asymmetrically so that the enemy does not just hit our soil unpunished. That if we hit a key logistic hub, for example, or burn down an ammo storage, our guys at the front line will fare much better. They won't get the same amount of guided aerial bombs, missiles, etc. dropped on them anymore.
Okay, so this is really interesting because they understand that they have to get a multiplier effect, so they have to go after targets that will have a significant effect on the rest of the battlefield, where they're not trying to cause panic with Russian civilians like what the Russians are trying to do to Ukrainians. So this is interesting. They have to think asymmetrically.
The enemy won't be able to refuel as efficiently as before. It will affect the battlefield.
Then it's time to head out. Preparation, launching location, all top secret. We're only allowed to turn the camera back on when everything is set up on the runway. All right, now we're on the field, not in the hangar. The drones have their wings on. They're quite big. As you can see, also quite tall. I'm about 6 foot. This is just to give you an idea about the size. They're also quite wide, and it's quite cold. You can see the frost covering the wings. Citing, I don't know how many drones they have lined up here. I didn't count. I think it's like 15, and they will launch them one after the next, of course, as fast as possible for safety reasons. And they say the whole thing takes about 40 minutes to an hour if all the conditions are fulfilled. If there's an air alarm and we have to turn on electronic warfare systems, or our air defense starts working, then obviously they can't do it, because then Ukraine would shoot down its own drones, which is obviously something they're trying to avoid. So let's see how this night goes.
Pretty
the guys
awesome.
who met us here are not unfriendly, it's the wrong word, but you can feel there's a bit of tension in the air, and it's super understandable. I would also be stressed if someone's coming to film at me. Why? Because this is a super sensitive operation. I mean, this is a super high value target for the Russians. It's a huge problem for them, these drones and these deep strikes. It costs them a lot of money, and we have to work as...
So let's think about it like this. It costs them $200,000 per these drones that can strike, but just how much damage do they do to the Russians when they hit a oil refinery or a depot or that sort of thing? Okay, so I'll put the link to the rest of this. We only saw about 3 minutes of it. It's a 10-minute video. I'll put the link below so you can see that. Okay, Michael McKay made a good point. tweak it a little bit. He said NATO should be fighting Russian invaders. That's the purpose of the alliance. Well, the purpose should have been to prevent this Russian aggression to begin with. I mean, it was formed to stop the Soviets from continuing to press west and take more gobble up more ground. And that was the point. 3 years ago today, Anton Gerashenko says on March 16th, 2022, Russian aviation dropped 2 500-kilogram bombs on Mariupol Drama Theater. And ultimately, what happened was, after they had spelled out children in large letters, 1,000 people were in the theater on the day of the strike. 300 to 600 people were killed that day. And that's how the Russians roll. Last little bit by Darth Putin. There's 2 little clips here. On this day in 2023, President was first indicted by the International Criminal Court in The Hague. Here's a video of Putin praising the important work that the court does. And I've shown this before, so I'm not going to show it again. But then another from Darth Putin. Prez gets all the attention for being indicted for war crimes, but Maria Lvova-Belova has a sweet, smiling, indicted, wanted for war crimes face too. Yep, she's wanted for abducting children from Ukraine to Russia. All right, my friends, that's all that I have for you today. Thank you for your time. Thank you for the likes, the shares, the subscribes, and thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.